prepare to put on your tinfoil hats.
Tonight we're going to be talking with James about his UFO sightings. If you have had an experience that you would like to share, you can contact us at challengeunknown@gmail.com.
Hey, how's it going? My name's James. I'm from Cardiff. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia. 11 years ago, I saw an orange star. I don't know what I saw, but I thought it was something that the world should know.
How big would you say it was?
I don't know, like maybe the size of a quarter. I guess for you guys it would be a quarter. It's just like tiny little speck, and like maybe a bit bigger than the usual star.
It was orange, you say?
Yeah, orange, like a sunburst. Like a when you look at the sunset kind of color, like a burnt orange.
And what did this object do? Did it do anything? Did it hover there? What happened to it?
I think like for about an hour or two, it was just hovering. Nothing was really happening. Then out of the blue, it just flew off like really fast, like faster than a jet.
I've seen something similar a long time ago, except for it was a group of them. It was like 5 or 6. So it was like a burnt orange or almost a dark red, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That sounds like what I saw, except for this one was alone by itself.
Yeah, like I looked it up on the internet, and something similar happens in Northern Europe, but this was in Australia, so that's why I thought it was a bit weird and confusing.
Do you know any other people that have encountered a light like that or seen something like that?
My girlfriend's mother, she said back in the 80s, she saw something very similar, like similar story. This was in Wales, so I guess in South Wales in the 80s. So what's that, like 30 odd years ago?
Do you remember how she described it to you?
Similar kind of thing, like an orange dot in the sky, like. But she said she saw it fly off, but besides that, like, pretty much the same how I explained it. She said there was a couple of them, like a few dots, but like for me it was just one.
Tell me about your research into it when you said that you found cases of it in Europe. What did you read on that? What did you read on them?
I can't remember exactly what the name of it was, but I've heard like it said something to do like Aurus, blah blah blah, like Northern Europe, places like Denmark, Norway. It might be linked to do with the Northern Lights or something like that. But besides that, it's just really odd.
I don't think that a speck in the sky would have anything to do with the Northern Lights.
No, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah, you sent me a photo of another case that you found that looked very similar. Actually, if you look up orange UFOs, you'll find a bunch of these little orange dots in the sky that people have actually photographed. They're definitely unique and interesting. There's actually a couple of videos of them where they kind of do some really erratic stuff. So I kind of wonder what they are.
Yeah, like I don't know what I saw. Like, it'd be interesting to find out. Like, to just say what it actually is.
Yeah, looking up orange UFOs, that is basically exactly what me and Stefano saw a couple years back.
Really?
Over the Bay Area, yeah, in California.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that must happen all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. So the one that you saw, it just sat there, correct? It didn't do anything, then it took off eventually?
Yeah, it just like hovered like just in the same spot for a while, like, and then eventually just flew off.
So the difference between our two situations is the ones that we saw, me and Steph, were moving around. They were going up, down, left, right, diagonal, everything.
Wow.
Which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. I'm curious to what the correlation is and why there's so many cases in Europe in particular.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. It's like, I don't know, because it seems crazy. Like if I try to explain it to people, they just look at me like with a really faint face, like looking at me like I'm crazy or something.
I mean, of course, a lot of people don't aren't typically accepting of information like this because it's kind of like outlandish, you know.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, and it's always hard whenever you don't get this stuff on video too. You know, it's one thing when you get it on video, like the guy that we're gonna have on in episode 13. He actually got some stuff on video. It was paranormal related, not UFOs, but it added a lot of credibility to it in a sense where it's a lot easier to for the average guy to really understand what this guy's experiencing because you actually can see it and understand what's going on. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know,
unfortunately,
like people say, but seeing is believing.
seeing is believing. And
Yeah.
like the I don't know if you follow our Facebook page, but we well, me in particular, I was out with a couple buddies of mine um literally a week ago, and we observed these really weird orange lights in the sky. We got it on video too, which is really cool. But they were orange and they had these flame trails behind them, and they were doing these really erratic movements up in the sky. There were three of them, and they were going up and down and like curving around each other and stuff, and doing all these like really weird things. And the flame would eventually fade, and they'd turn into like white little balls, and they'd continue to move. And then the like flame trails would ignite again, and they just kept doing that until they eventually just disappeared. We watched them for probably 2 or 3 minutes.
Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I wouldn't count yourself short. I mean, you probably saw something in the sky that's pretty weird. I mean, I generally don't hear about orange light phenomena in the sky that's, you know, something explainable.
Mm, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have you ever seen, or do you know anybody in particular, like in your social group or just anybody actually, or heard any reports of other strange lights in the sky where you're from?
I know like every now and then you hear things like on the news, but it always seems like it might be a hoax or like paranormal or something that it's just out of touch, you know what I mean? It it goes nowhere.
Right, I see that a lot where it's something so it's not too unique, so it's really easy to write off as something. Like it's, oh, there's a little
Yeah,
ball in the sky. Yeah, whatever. It could be a number of things.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
but whenever videos emerge, they're few and far between. But whenever really good videos emerge where there's lights doing really erratic stuff, that's really cool to see. What do you think the lights are?
I don't know, to be honest. Like it could be something. It could be a UFO. It could be a star. It could be anything. Like I'm open to all interpretations.
One of the
What do you?
theories that a lot of people have is that some of these unexplainable lights are actually government aircraft that are kind of off, off the radar kind of thing. I've heard that a lot here in the States, is that people think that the government's working on some type of secret aircraft or stuff like that. Because the back when we have these stealth bombers here in the States that they're really weird looking. They're like these black V-shaped aircraft, and back when they were first doing test flights on them, there were hundreds of UFO reports. People think that they were alien spacecrafts and stuff, but the government actually came out and were like, no, these are actually a stealth bomber that we're working on. Like, here's photos of it up close. And so I wonder if, maybe what you saw was perhaps it was some type of aircraft the government was working on out there, or maybe it was something weather related, but who really knows? It's a mystery.
No, it is a mystery. Yeah, it's like I I I wouldn't even know where to begin. You know, like if it was something government related, it'd be a bit strange out in the city compared to like usually things like that do it out where nobody can see.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Is generally if the government's working on a secret type of aircraft, they probably don't want to be flying it over the city kind of thing where people can see it.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. It's really interesting. Have you really ever been into this kind of stuff? Have you really looked into any of these kind of UFO related stuff, aliens or paranormal, or is any of this stuff anything that actually has ever interested you, or is this just an experience that you had as an average guy?
Uh, I find some of it interesting, but I haven't really done much research into it. Like, I never really thought about it that much until like I was reading something on Reddit and I came across and I thought like, oh, I might as well tell my story. Like, it might be interesting to some people.
Yeah, when you put up your post, did you get very many replies about it?
I got one reply from somebody in Nottingham in England saying like something similar happened to them like 20 odd years ago.
It's interesting that there's a bunch of historical cases of this going back like 30, 40 years. So people are seeing something up there that's orange, which is really interesting. I
Yeah.
wonder what causes that orange. Why is it orange? Is really interesting because a lot of the other like UFO reports that people see is they're generally white lights. So I wonder what all that means and what the correlation with all that kind of stuff is.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, like maybe it might be the weather. I don't know. Like it was quite warm when I saw it, but I don't know for like other people if it was like in the middle of winter or autumn or spring.
There's a really famous UFO case or abduction case, I guess you should say, in Arizona, which is where I am. And it's so are you familiar with Arizona in the States at all?
Yeah, it's like southwest sort of ways, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty desert. It's pretty arid in most of its regions, but back in actually this happened a couple miles away from where I work now. It's big city, like it's a big city nowadays, Phoenix is, but they actually made a movie about it. I think the movie was called Dane, help me out here. I think it was called Fire in the Sky. That's what it was called, and it was based off the true story. And it's just the most bizarre story that I've really ever heard. So there were all these. I think they did something with lumber. I think they they were lumber workers, and they were out in the forest. And basically, what happened was one of their buddies they saw some type of spacecraft, and one of their buddies got too close to it, and their buddy went missing, and they all freaked out and left without him. They all ran off without him, and they booked it back towards town. And they went to the sheriffs and stuff, and everyone thought they were just screwing around or making stuff up, and their buddy really was missing. Nobody could find him. They couldn't find what happened to the other guy that they were with, and he was missing for a couple days. And eventually what happened was the cops started to look at the other guys that worked in the lumber that were his friend like as suspects, thinking that they killed him or something, and hit him, like hit his body out there. And then the guy showed back up a couple days later alive, and had just like this absolute bizarre report where he was saying that he was up in this spacecraft and just all this like classic alien abduction stuff. And it basically was a huge story, and they made them take lie detector tests, and everybody passed the lie detector tests, and it was just this whole thing. And now it's kind of been like a infamous UFO case and spacecraft encounter.
Wow, it's insane when you hear stories about that. Like you'd think like they'll look more into it, but it just goes nowhere. And I think that's like half the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of this stuff, because science is empirical and it has to be based off like empirical evidence that you can actually measure. And a lot of this stuff, we don't have a way to measure it. We don't have a way of getting documentation on it. So it's really difficult to get any kind of answers out of it. And until we have a better understanding of all this stuff, we're not going to really have very good answers on it.
No, of course not.
Yeah, Fire in the Sky came out in 1993. But it was based off a true story that happened out here, I think in like the 80s. I'm pretty sure it happened in the 80s. Let me look that up real quick. I'm really curious about that. Yeah, I found it. The Travis Walton UFO incident. It was alien abduction of American forestry worker, November 5th, 1975. They were working in the Apache National Forest near Snowflake, Arizona. He reappeared after he was missing for 5 days.
Wow,
That's
5
insane.
days. Yeah, like I can imagine like the guy would probably like have heaps of like psychological trauma or something like that.
Yeah, I think all these guys are still alive actually. I think Travis Walton actually still does like he still talks about it pretty openly on like media press conferences and stuff, which is really interesting.
Mm.
You don't have any famous UFO cases, Dane? What are some that come
Other
to
than
mind?
I'm so like out of the loop on UFO stuff. So I'm all into that like paranormal, spiritual, like cryptic kind of things. The only UFO cases I can name off the top of my head is like Roswell.
Oh yeah, the Roswell. Have you heard of the Roswell incident?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody's heard of Roswell and like Area 51, you know, I think that's world famous.
Yeah, what's your opinion? What's your opinion on the Roswell incident?
I don't know like the whole story of it, but like I think like the whole Area 51 and like you know, it's hard to say because it's government, like it's all conspiracy, so it's like you don't really know what's going on there. Like they won't budge about it, will they?
Yeah, no, it's so the whole Roswell thing is actually it's heavily debated here in the States. It's heavily commercialized also. If you go out to Roswell, New Mexico, which is real close to Arizona, if you actually go out there, it like there's shops, all the shops and stuff in the area are all alien themed and they've got so much alien merchandise and stuff. But the true story behind it was that there was this farmer and he found some metallic pieces of something on his property and he called the police about it because he thought it was weird and the police phoned the I think it was the Air Force and they came out there and sent out some guys to come look at the debris because they thought it was an aircraft and basically the Air Force guy came out publicly and said that they had recovered an alien spacecraft and then like a couple days later they retracted that and were like no it's just a weather balloon and that's kind of where this whole story like starts to get really weird because then they started to say oh like we said it was UFO because we were trying to cover up a secret weather balloon project but then they came out and said it was a weather balloon. It's this whole complicated mess and it's just really weird. I'd love to like know the farmer that found the metallic parts originally and just find out exactly what he saw.
Yeah, I wouldn't be like surprised if the government like paid him off, so you just go away and live in like exile away from everybody, so he can't say anything.
But yeah, man. So what? Got any questions for us? What are you thinking about all this kind of stuff?
I know it's a lot to take in. I think like I definitely learnt stuff from being on here. Like probably look more into the port like UFO phenomenon and like paranormal and stuff like that because it's like if I can learn more information and I guess educate others, like maybe I'll find more answers to what I'm looking for.
Yeah, man, for sure. And don't be afraid to like find some videos. There's probably a video out there somewhere if you can find it that's probably very close, if not exactly what you saw. So I
Yeah,
say don't shy away from that or you know there's some subreddits for it. The subreddit I think for UFOs in particular has gotten like super bad. Like I was on there recently and it's all confirmation bias, but not in like so there's two types of confirmation bias when it comes to this kind of stuff. There's the guy that believes everything is an alien spacecraft, right? That's a confirmation bias. And then there's also a confirmation bias where it's not everything's BS. None of it's real. There's the other end of the confirmation bias. The UFO subreddit is actually surprisingly the opposite confirmation bias now, where they're all saying that just every video or every photo that like pops up on there, even when they're like really really bizarre videos and stuff, they're just immediately discounted and downvoted, and it's kind of sad because a lot of it is really unexplained and really creepy and really interesting to look at, but like so many people are just discrediting it right off the bat, even though there's no indication that it can be explained easily by something else.
yeah, like a lot of it would fall through the cracks, so it's not as obvious as it should be, kind of thing.
Right. So I think I'm gonna have to look into the Facebook groups for it now, because there's a lot of UFO Facebook groups now, and like people that look at videos and talk about that. I wonder if those ones are better than the subreddit now, because I really stay away from the UFO subreddit in general, just because it's not as fun as it should be, I guess, is kind of how I would put it. But yeah, man, definitely look around. Definitely do some research, on your own accord. Don't let it, don't obsess over it, obviously. But out of your own curiosity, I'd say definitely look into it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like definitely something rabbit hole to go down and have a look into.
Yeah, for sure, man.